No species remembered who created the rule. They only remembered why it existed. Across the known universe, among thousands of star-faring civilizations, there was one law older than any alliance, treaty, or empire. Do not interfere with humans. It was not written in fear. It was written in caution. The Keeler Dominion had obeyed that rule for 6,000 cycles. Their fleets were ancient, their technology flawless, their history clean of reckless mistakes. They observed, catalogued, and calculated. That was the Keeler way. And now, they were about to break the rule. High Observer Threx stood alone in the silence chamber, a vast circular room of floating light and drifting symbols. Before him hovered a living projection of a small blue planet, Earth. Confirm probability, Threx said. The chamber answered in calm tones. Human civilization, fragmented but accelerating. Technological growth curve exceeding containment models. Risk classification, escalating. Threx folded his long, jointed hands behind his back. His species had 3 eyes, each adapted to see different layers of reality. All 3 focused on Earth. So many conflicts, he murmured. So much chaos. And yet, they endured. Humans fought wars, destroyed ecosystems, and argued endlessly among themselves. By every galactic standard, they should have collapsed long ago. But they didn't. They adapted. That was the problem. Council authorization. Threx asked. There was a pause. That alone was unsettling. Authorization granted, the chamber replied. Limited interference permitted. Observation team only. Threx exhaled slowly. Somewhere deep in his instincts, something twisted uncomfortably. The rule existed for a reason. On Earth, no one noticed the small distortion in the upper atmosphere. No alarms sounded. No governments panicked. No satellites detected anything unusual. That was human blind luck, or human ignorance. In a desert research facility far from any city, Dr. Elias Rowe leaned over a cluttered workbench, rubbing tired eyes. The prototype before him was crude, unstable, and beautiful. A drive that bent space. It shouldn't work, his assistant muttered. Elias smiled faintly. That's what they said about flight, electricity, and the internet. The device hummed, vibrating the air. Numbers spiked. Readings surged. Then the lights went out. When power returned seconds later, the drive was gone. Along with half the laboratory. Elias stared at the empty space where years of work had been. He didn't scream. He didn't panic. He laughed. Someone, he whispered, heart racing, just stole the impossible. The Keeler observation vessel Silent Witness drifted at the edge of the solar system, invisible by design. Inside, the human scientists sat restrained but unharmed, eyes wide as they took in their surroundings. Smooth walls, living light, no visible seams. Technology so advanced it felt unreal. Elias broke the silence. Okay, he said slowly, either I'm hallucinating, or we're not alone. Observer Threx entered the chamber, towering yet calm. You are not alone, Threx said. And you were never meant to know we existed. That should have terrified them. Instead, Elias leaned forward, eyes burning with curiosity. So, he said, who are you, and why steal my drive instead of just asking? A ripple of unease moved through the observing crew. That was not the expected reaction. We intervened, Threx said carefully, because your technology crosses thresholds your species is not prepared for. Elias frowned. Prepared according to who? Threx hesitated. No one had ever asked that before. You are volatile, Threx continued. Your species lacks unity. You wage war. You experiment without restraint. Elias nodded. Fair. Then he smiled. But we also learn fast. And we don't stop. The words echoed uncomfortably. You broke the rule, Elias added quietly. Threx stiffened. You know of it. No, Elias said. But if there's a rule about leaving us alone, and you're here, that means something scared you enough to ignore it. Silence fell. The human assistant, Mara Chen, glanced around the chamber. So what now? You erase our memories? Drop us back home? Threx looked at them, really looked. These creatures were fragile, short-lived, emotion-driven. But behind their fear was something else. Adaptability. Now, Threx said, you will be returned. Your work will be monitored. Further interference. The ship shuddered. Alarms flared across the chamber, light shifting from calm blue to sharp crimson. Report, Threx demanded. Unknown signal, an officer replied. Origin, Earth. Threx froze. That's impossible, he said. On the main display, a crude transmission appeared. Grainy. Noisy. Human. Elias recognized the voice instantly. His own. A recording, sent from Earth. If anyone is receiving this, the message said, we detected a spatial displacement event. Whoever you are, you missed something. The drive was only a prototype. Threx's crew stared in disbelief. The humans are tracking us, one whispered. The message continued. The real breakthrough, Elias's recorded voice said, was understanding why the universe resists being folded. Turns out, it doesn't like being forced. But if you ask it nicely. The signal cut. The chamber was silent. Then Mara laughed softly. Yeah, that sounds like him. Threx felt something cold settle into his core. They hadn't stolen humanity's greatest invention. They had stolen the first draft. Observer, an officer said carefully. Long-range scans show multiple similar energy signatures. Earth-based. Spreading. Threx closed his eyes. The rule hadn't existed to protect the galaxy from humans. It existed to protect humans from what they would become once they realized they were no longer alone. And now, they knew. The Keeler vessel did not flee. That decision alone would later be studied, debated, and quietly regretted by 3 different civilizations. High Observer Threx stood motionless as streams of data flooded the chamber. Human signals were multiplying. Not refined. Not elegant. But persistent. Humans were not knocking at the door of the universe. They were testing every wall, every seam, every weakness, at once. Estimate time before detection becomes unavoidable, Threx asked. The chamber answered without emotion. Current trajectory. Weeks. Possibly days. Threx turned toward Elias Rowe and his team. The humans were whispering among themselves, excitement overtaking fear with alarming speed. This is bad, Mara Chen said, though her eyes sparkled. Really bad. Elias nodded slowly. For them. Threx narrowed his eyes. You treat this as triumph. Elias met his gaze. No. We treat it as reality. You showed up. That changes everything. Threx gestured toward the hologram of Earth. Your world is unstable. Your species fights itself. You are not ready for galactic contact. Elias tilted his head. We were never ready for electricity either. Or fire. Readiness isn't something humans wait for. It's something we survive. That word again. Survive. Threx dismissed the humans back to their containment quarters. He needed time, something the galaxy rarely offered when humans were involved. Back on Earth, the disappearance of the research team did not cause panic. It caused obsession. Governments denied knowledge. Corporations smelled opportunity. Scientists argued theories late into sleepless nights. Amateur researchers flooded networks with speculation. But one pattern emerged. Every human experiment involving space-folding technology began behaving differently. Not failing. Responding. It was as if the universe itself had noticed humanity's curiosity and decided to answer back. Dr. Amora Velasquez watched the data streams with a trembling smile. It's not resisting, she whispered. It's cooperating. Her colleague frowned. That's impossible. So was faster than light, Amora replied. Within days, independent teams across the planet replicated partial results. Not identical. Humans never worked that way. Each group approached the problem differently: messy, inefficient, brilliant. And every method worked. Poorly at first. Then better. Then alarmingly well. On the Silent Witness, Threx convened an emergency council session with other observer species. Faces and forms filled the projection ring: scaled, crystalline, gaseous, mechanical. "You broke the rule," accused a voice of living flame. "I followed protocol," Threx replied. "Limited interference." "And awakened them," another snapped. "They were already awakening," Threx said quietly. "We merely confirmed it." Reports poured in. Human probes detecting distortions. Human transmissions leaking beyond their system. Human ships testing experimental drives, some failing catastrophically, others vanishing entirely. And some reappearing. Closer. "They are not advancing linearly," said a data entity from the Helix Collective. "They advance chaotically. That makes prediction unreliable." "Containment is still possible," insisted a militarized species. "Quarantine Earth. Erase knowledge." Threx felt a surge of something dangerously close to anger. "You cannot erase curiosity," he said. "You can only sharpen it." The council fell silent. Then the worst report arrived. A human vessel, small, unstable, clearly not designed for sustained travel, had exited faster than light near a populated trade route. Alive. On board, 3 humans. Broadcasting greetings. Elias felt the moment before he understood it. A pressure behind the eyes. A subtle shift in perception. "You feel that?" Mara asked. Threx stared at the sensors. Another breach. Elias smiled slowly. "They did it." "You were not authorized," Threx began. "To save ourselves." Elias interrupted. "We never are." The human ship appeared on the main display. Its hull was scorched. Its design inelegant. But it held together through sheer stubbornness. The transmission opened. A man's face filled the screen, bruised, exhausted, grinning wildly. "Okay," the man said. "So aliens are real. Cool. We're a little lost. Also, sorry about the mess we made in space. First try." Threx felt something break, not in the ship, but in the assumption that humans could be controlled. The rule had failed because it assumed fear would stop them. Fear never had. The galaxy reacted swiftly. Borders tightened. Fleets mobilized. Observation posts went dark. Trade routes rerouted to avoid human expansion vectors. But humans did not expand like empires. They spread like ideas. Human engineers shared open-source drive concepts without patents. Human artists depicted alien worlds before ever seeing them. Human musicians streamed frequencies that resonated strangely with non-human nervous systems. Where humans arrived, systems changed. Not violently. Inevitably. On Central Trade Node Curies, an alien merchant watched in disbelief as humans repaired a damaged reactor using scrap, duct tape, and mathematics no one else bothered to try. "They should not understand that system," the merchant muttered. The human shrugged. It was close enough. That phrase became infamous. Close enough. Threx observed from afar as the council debated escalation. Some demanded force. Others urged adaptation. But one truth became unavoidable. Humans were not invaders. They were collaborators, whether invited or not. They did not conquer with fleets. They conquered with solutions. And the galaxy had problems. Energy shortages. Political stagnation. Species locked into ancient traditions that no longer served them. Humans questioned everything, including the rule. Elias stood once more before Threx, no longer restrained. "You're afraid," Elias said softly. Threx did not deny it. "Because we don't fit your models," Elias continued. "We never have. But we're not your enemy." "You change everything you touch," Threx replied. Elias smiled. "So does fire. So does electricity. So does life." Threx looked at the stars beyond the hull. For the first time in his long existence, he wondered if the rule had been wrong from the beginning. Perhaps the danger was never human interference. Perhaps the danger was waiting too long to engage them honestly. Outside the ship, another human signal pulsed into existence. Then another. And another. The universe had rules. Humans had always treated rules as challenges. The universe did not explode into war. That was the first surprise. The second was far more unsettling. It adapted. Trade lanes once silent now carried human voices. Research stations long ignored suddenly pulsed with new activity. Where stagnation had ruled for centuries, motion returned. Not because humans demanded it. Because they invited participation. High Observer Threx stood on the viewing platform of Central Accord Station, watching a sight no simulation had ever predicted. Humans and non-humans worked side by side in controlled chaos. Arguments broke out, laughter followed, mistakes were made, then fixed. Repeatedly. This should be impossible, muttered Archivist Kell, a being of living crystal beside him. They violate every efficiency standard. Yes, Threx replied. And yet they succeed. Humans brought no grand doctrine. No singular philosophy. They brought questions. Why does this system work that way? What happens if we try something else? What if failure isn't the end? Those ideas spread faster than any fleet. Dr. Amora Velasquez floated gently in a zero-gravity lab, surrounded by alien researchers. They watched as she dismantled and reassembled a containment field generator in a way that made no sense to them. That configuration is unstable, one warned. Amora smiled. Only if you assume stability is the goal. She activated the system. Power output tripled. The aliens stared. Humans don't fear instability, Amora explained. We grew up inside it. That sentence entered the galactic psychological archives within the hour. Not all reactions were welcoming. The Varn Coalition, an old, rigid alliance, declared humans a destabilizing influence. Their fleets took positions near human expansion zones. Warnings were issued. Ultimatums delivered. Humans responded with invitations to talk. When that failed, they responded with preparation. Not weapons. Redundancy. Human ships carried backups for their backups. Human networks rerouted instantly when disrupted. Human crews trained to operate under failure as the default condition. When a Varn patrol attempted to seize a human vessel, they found the ship empty. The humans had already escaped, using a drive assembled from components considered non-functional by Varn standards. The incident ended without a shot fired. The message was clear. You cannot corner a species that plans for everything to go wrong. Threx reviewed the latest council report with growing unease. Human population centers were forming off-world, not colonies, but hubs. Places where species mixed freely, exchanging ideas without permission. This erodes centralized control, warned one counselor. Threx responded quietly. So does progress. The room fell silent. Threx remembered the ancient texts, the original reasoning behind the rule. Humans were dangerous because they scaled too fast. Because once they understood a system, they improved it. And once they improved it, they shared it. That made them uncontrollable. But now Threx saw the deeper truth. They were uncontrollable because they refused to accept stagnation as safety. Elias Rowe stood on the edge of a newly constructed observation ring orbiting a neutral star. He looked older now. Not weary, hardened. Threx joined him. You've changed the galaxy, Threx said. Elias shook his head. No. We just asked it to change with us. You were warned, Threx said. There was a rule. Elias looked at him. Rules exist because someone was afraid of something. The question is whether that fear still makes sense. Threx said nothing. Below them, a joint human-alien vessel launched smoothly, its design a chaotic blend of philosophies. It worked beautifully. The crisis came without warning. A region of space long considered dead suddenly collapsed inward. Stars folded. Energy spiked beyond known limits. A cosmic failure point. Every civilization panicked. Except one. Human analysts recognized the pattern immediately. This is like a cascading system crash, one said. It's not attacking. It's breaking. Within hours, human-led teams proposed a solution so reckless no other species would consider it. Use the instability. Ride the collapse. Anchor reality from the inside. This will kill you, warned a council representative. Elias replied calmly, maybe. But not trying will kill everyone. Human ships volunteered before approval could be granted. Alien crews hesitated. Then, slowly, joined them. The operation was chaos. Perfect chaos. Human pilots adjusted mid-failure. Human engineers rewrote equations while under gravitational shear. Human commanders made decisions without waiting for consensus. They trusted each other. They trusted adaptation. And against every expectation, the collapse slowed. Then stopped. The universe held. Silence followed. Then celebration, restrained, stunned, reverent. In the aftermath, the council reconvened. The rule was brought forward. For the first time in recorded history, it was questioned openly. Do not interfere with humans, the text read. Threx stood before the assembly. That rule assumed humans were a threat to be contained, he said. They are not. Murmurs rippled. They are a catalyst, Threx continued. A force that exposes weaknesses, yes, but also heals them. A pause. The danger was never touching humans, he said. The danger was pretending they wouldn't touch us back. The vote was unanimous. The rule was repealed. On Earth, few understood the full weight of that moment. Humans simply kept moving forward. Exploring. Learning. Failing. Improving. They had never wanted to rule the stars. They wanted to understand them. And the universe, finally, was ready to answer. The repeal of the rule did not bring peace. It brought attention. For centuries, many powers had hidden behind caution, restraint, and bureaucracy. Humans had shattered that balance, not with conquest, but with momentum. And momentum frightened those who thrived on control. The Night Harry Imperium watched carefully. They were old. Older than the Keeler, older than most recorded alliances. Their fleets were vast, their weapons refined, their culture rigid. Order was sacred to them. Predictability was strength. Humans were neither. The catalyst species grows unchecked, declared Supreme Strategist Vila, his metallic voice echoing through the war chamber. They infect systems with instability. They also stabilize failing regions, one advisor said cautiously. Vila's eyes glowed coldly. Uncontrolled change is a threat. The old rule existed for a reason. The Imperium made its decision. Not extermination. Correction. The first strike was silent. A human-alien research hub near the Veil Nebula lost power, then gravity, then communication. No explosions. No warnings. Precision disruption. When contact was restored hours later, the station was intact, but helpless. Human crews were alive. Stranded. News spread quickly. The galaxy held its breath. Elias Rowe watched the feed with a tight jaw. They're testing us, Mara said beside him. No, Elias replied. They're measuring us. Threx joined them, his expression grim. The Night Harry believe force will impose order. Elias nodded slowly. Then they don't understand how humans fight. Explain, Threx said. Elias looked at the crippled station, then at the stars beyond. We don't fight to dominate, he said. We fight to adapt. Human response was immediate and strange. No fleets surged forward. No threats were broadcast. Instead, dozens of small human ships appeared across nearby systems. Civilian-class vessels. Cargo haulers. Science craft. They docked with alien stations. Shared data. Rerouted resources. Human engineers released schematics, publicly, showing how to harden infrastructure against the exact kind of attack the Night Harry had used. Within days, The tactic was obsolete. The Imperium noticed. This was meant to isolate them, Vila snarled. They have turned it into a lesson. The second move was harsher. A Night Harry battle group intercepted a joint human-alien convoy and issued an ultimatum. Withdraw humans from galactic infrastructure projects, or escalation would follow. The human convoy commander responded with a single sentence. We don't withdraw from shared work. Weapons powered up. This time, humans did not retreat. They did something worse. They improvised. Human ships scattered, not in panic, but in pattern. Sensor ghosts bloomed across the battlefield, false signatures, distorted echoes, unpredictable vectors. Night Harry targeting systems struggled. Then human vessels reappeared, not behind enemy lines, but inside sensor-blind zones no doctrine considered usable. No shots fired. Instead, human signals flooded the Imperium's command channels. Live feeds. Real-time analysis. Suggestions. You have a vulnerability in your power distribution, one message said politely. If this were a real engagement, you'd be disabled by now, said another. We're happy to walk you through the fix. Vila stared at the displays in disbelief. They weren't threatening. They were teaching. The Night Harry fleet withdrew. Not in defeat. In confusion. Across the galaxy, something shifted. Humans were not warriors in the traditional sense. They were problem solvers under pressure. They didn't ask, how do we win? They asked, how do we make this stop being a problem? That made them terrifying. The final confrontation came not at the edge of space, but at its heart. A massive energy lattice, maintained by ancient species, began destabilizing. It powered half the known trade network. Failure would collapse economies. Starve worlds. The Night Harry offered control. We will secure it, Vila announced. Under our authority. Humans offered cooperation. We'll fix it, Amora Velasquez said. Together. The council hesitated. Time ran out. The lattice began to fail. Humans moved first. Not with permission. With volunteers. They entered the lattice, an environment no species had ever survived long, by breaking their own safety protocols, rewriting them on the fly as conditions changed. Alien observers watched in horror as human teams worked while systems failed around them. Why don't they retreat? Someone asked. Threx answered quietly. Because retreat won't fix it. Humans lost ships. They lost people. They kept going. And slowly, impossibly, the lattice stabilized. When it was over, the galaxy mourned the fallen. Human memorials were simple. Names. Stories. Lessons learned. No statues. Failure teaches, Elias said at the ceremony. Survival honors. Vila stood alone after the crisis, reviewing the data. The Imperium's models were obsolete. Humans could not be dominated. They could not be isolated. They could not be predicted. But they could be partnered with. That realization hurt more than defeat. Threx looked out over a galaxy forever changed. The rule had been broken. The consequences were not destruction. They were transformation. And humanity was only getting started. History would later mark the moment not with a battle or a treaty, but with a question. What do humans do next? The galaxy waited for an answer it thought it already knew. Expansion. Control. Influence. Every rising species followed that path eventually. Humans did not. Instead, they paused. After the lattice crisis, after the losses, after proving, beyond argument, that they could outthink, outadapt, and outlast civilizations far older than themselves, humanity did something deeply unsettling. They asked for time. We need to understand what we've become, Elias Rowe told the council. And what we don't want to be. That alone rewrote every strategic prediction. Memorials spread across shared worlds. Humans and aliens stood together in silence, not divided by species, but united by grief and respect. Stories were exchanged. Failures were admitted openly. Lessons were documented and shared freely. No empire would have allowed that. Humans insisted on it. Amora Velasquez addressed a mixed assembly of engineers and diplomats. "We break things," she said simply. "Sometimes badly. But we learn. And when we learn, we teach. That's the deal we offer." The offer was dangerous. It meant transparency. It meant vulnerability. It meant trusting a species that refused to pretend it had all the answers. The Night Harry Imperium faced a reckoning. Vila stood before his own council, stripped of certainty. "We cannot control them," he admitted. "But we can learn from them." That sentence would have been treason a generation earlier. Now, it was survival. Night Harry systems began integrating human-designed redundancies, flexible command structures, decentralized decision-making. Progress was messy. It worked. Other powers followed. Reluctantly at first. Then eagerly. Threx observed the changes with something close to awe. The galaxy was louder now. More chaotic. Less efficient by old standards. And infinitely more alive. Human hubs became places of exchange, not domination. Conflict still existed. Humans never promised peace. They promised effort. When crises arose, humans didn't wait for consensus. They moved, adapted, corrected, and invited others to join mid-action. "Why do you do this?" Threx asked Elias one evening, watching ships depart in 100 directions. Elias considered the question. "Because standing still feels like dying," he said. "And because if we can help, we should. Even if it costs you." Threx asked. Elias nodded. "Especially then." The final vote came quietly. A proposal to amend galactic law. Not a new rule. A removal. The last trace of the old warning was erased. No more quarantines. No more special containment classifications. No more fear disguised as policy. Humans were no longer an exception. They were participants. When the decision was announced, human reaction was muted. Some celebrated. Some worried. Most simply went back to work. Exploring. Building. Questioning. Being human. Years later, a young alien student would ask their instructor why the ancient rule had ever existed. The instructor would answer carefully. Because the universe feared what humans would become. And were they right? The student would ask. The instructor would smile. No, they would say. The universe misunderstood them. Humans were not dangerous because they destroyed. They were dangerous because they changed things. Because they refused to stay small. Because once they touched the stars could never go back to being silent. And the universe, vast, ancient, and stubborn, had finally learned the same lesson humans had always lived by. Rules are only as strong as the courage to question them.